I never thought a relationship could unravel over a joke. Not even a mean joke, just something tossed out for a laugh, the kind you say to score points with the crowd and move on. I guess that's why it cut so deep. It wasn't a fight or a betrayal in the classic sense. It was a punchline I didn't know I was a part of until it was too late. My name's Mark. I'm 35, a veterinarian, and I've run a small clinic just outside Austin, Texas for the last 6 years. If you're picturing a strip mall space between a nail salon and a dry cleaner, you're not far off. I like what I do. Some days, I love it. People bring you their worries in carriers and on leashes, and you try to send them home with hope. I've helped a lot of animals and a lot of people too. It's a good life. It was a better life when I was with Kelly. We met in the most predictable way possible for a vet. She brought in a dog. Buddy was this anxious, gray-muzzled shepherd mix who did not appreciate my exam table. I remember the first moment I saw her, standing in the doorway of the exam room. She had that beachy California girl thing going on, sun-kissed hair, denim jacket, small gold hoop earrings, and she was talking to Buddy like he was a toddler who needed a pep talk. The appointment should have taken 15 minutes, tops. We were there an hour and a half. She kept apologizing for talking so much. I kept telling her it was fine. I didn't want it to end. Kelly had just moved to Austin after finishing a master's in marine biology. Austin didn't have an ocean, obviously, but it did have research orgs with field placements on the Gulf and a developing climate tech scene. She was chasing a grant-funded job at an institute that studied coastal erosion and shark migration patterns in the Gulf of Mexico. I didn't know much about sharks beyond the basic "don't touch that" vibe, but I learned because she talked about them like they were misunderstood old friends. We started dating 3 days after that first appointment. The first month was a blur of tacos and late-night walks around Lady Bird Lake, dive bars with live music, and weekend road trips to little hill country towns that sell peach ice cream in summer. I'd been comfortable being single before Kelly. After Kelly, being single felt like I'd been asleep with the lights on and didn't know it until someone gently turned them off. There was one complication, and his name was Jason. He was Kelly's best friend from high school. Their families had lived 3 houses apart in a suburb outside San Diego. According to Kelly, nothing romantic had ever happened between them. He'd moved to Denver for a tech job and gotten into trail running and craft beer. I met him over FaceTime a few weeks into the relationship. He had that athletic, easy confidence that makes you either want to be his friend or hate him a little. I chose the friend route. It mostly worked. Kelly and I moved in together after a year. I owned a modest one-story place with a fenced yard, good for Buddy and my 2 dogs, so it made sense. By then, the grant money at her institute had dried up, and the permanent role she was promised got pushed another quarter, then another. I picked up the bills. She promised when a position finally came through, she'd split everything. I believed her. Kelly was a worker. She's the kind of person who alphabetizes spice cabinets for stress relief and sets 5 alarms to go for a run before sunrise. If she wasn't working, it was because she couldn't. And I could, so I did. Living together was good. It was noisy and a little chaotic. 3 dogs in a small house, my on-call syringe of adrenaline by the door for emergencies, her field gear drying on the shower rod, but it felt like the kind of chaos that means home. We had routines. Friday morning coffee runs to the Bluebonnet Cafe, grocery trips where she'd sneak an extra box of the fancy granola into the cart and pretend it fell in by accident. Sundays at Zilker with a blanket, a speaker, and a paperback that neither of us read because we kept pointing out other people's dogs and making up names for them. I knew about Jason, of course. He called on Thursday nights mostly. Sometimes it was just the 2 of them. Sometimes it was a group Zoom with a couple of her old friends. People with names like Britt and Cam who said hella unironically and still referred to high school teachers by their last names like they were characters in a TV show. I'd wave hello if I walked through the kitchen. They'd wave back and tell me I had cool dog energy. It never felt like a big deal. But there was a knot, small and tight, somewhere below my ribs whenever Jason came up. I didn't pick at it. Then, one Monday in April, Kelly texted me around lunchtime. "Got the job! Official!" She'd been offered a role with that same institute, the one that owed her 3 near-miss offers and 2 apology emails. This was it. A stable salary, benefits, fieldwork rotations on the Gulf, the whole dream. I sent back fireworks emojis and a text so enthusiastic I used too many exclamation points. I closed my laptop, told my lead tech to take afternoon appointments, and made a detour on the way home. I picked up her favorite pad thai and green curry from the place that remembers her order. I grabbed a bottle of Pinot Noir with a shark on the label because I'm not above a theme. And I took out a small velvet box from the top shelf of my closet, a silver pendant in the shape of a hammerhead I'd bought months ago when she'd stopped in front of a jewelry shop window and said, "That is so cool, the way you say it about something you want but can't justify." I parked behind the house and came in through the side entrance that leads into the basement. I don't know why exactly. Habit? Maybe. The plan was to sneak in, grab the pendant from the toolbox where I'd hidden it, and then come upstairs like a normal person and say, "Surprise, I'm early." As I climbed the stairs, I heard her voice, bright and echoey, the way voices are on speaker. I paused with my hand on the door to the kitchen. I don't think of myself as a guy who listens at doors, but I also didn't want to walk into the frame of whatever call she was on with a gift and a dumb grin. I know," she was saying, laughing. "It's not like that. Mark is amazing. He is. He's like the best man I've ever dated as a person." There was a chorus of awes and someone making a fake violin sound. Jason's voice cut through. There's a butt coming. I can hear it. Kelly lowered her voice, which somehow made it carry more. In bed, it's fine. It's just not exciting. The room on the other end erupted. I felt my chest buzz like I'd touched an electric fence. She kept going. Look, I love him. I do. But you know how with some people there's just that spark? With Mark, it's more like a flicker. And I swear I'm trying not to be shallow, but after my ex, it's hard not to compare. The man was generously proportioned. She laughed at her own phrasing. Like we're talking a noticeable difference. I cut up baby carrots for salads and I'm like, oh no, is this mean? Jason whistled. Someone said, damn, Kel. Somebody else said, stop, I'm dying. I stood there, one foot on the stair, one hand on the doorknob, and I felt something in me tilt. Not break, not yet, but tilt. The words weren't even the worst part. I think what gutted me was the performance of it. The way she did that playful conspiratorial tone people use when they're trying out stand-up material on Friends. Like our bed was a stage and I was the joke. I eased the door shut and stepped back down into the basement. I put the pendant back in the toolbox, slid the box under a stack of extension cords, and sat on the bottom step for a full minute. Then I got up, walked out the side door, drove to the end of the block, and parked behind a grocery store. I sat in that car long enough for the pad thai to go cold and the Pinot to warm up. At some point, I realized I was holding the steering wheel like it owed me money. When I went home an hour later, I came in through the front like nothing had happened. Kelly was at the counter, cheerful and buzzy the way she gets when she's excited. She kissed me, saw the takeout, squealed, and started talking about her onboarding schedule and how she'd be on a boat by June. I nodded at the right places. I opened the wine, we celebrated, I pretended I couldn't taste the metal in my mouth. I didn't sleep that night. I laid there with my eyes open, listening to her breathe, and I had a conversation with myself that went in circles. Maybe you misheard. Maybe it's not what you think. Maybe you shouldn't be so sensitive. Maybe you should be madder. Maybe you should be gone. The next morning, my first patient was a terrier with a hot spot and an owner who'd Googled herself into a panic. After we got them squared away, I stepped into the break room to mainline coffee. That's when Hannah, a woman I knew through Kelly's running club, came in with her dog. She's one of those friendly, chatty people who treat small talk like a sport. While I was checking her dog's ears, she said, oh my God, are you going to be at Kelly's celebration tonight? She said she got the job. We were on Zoom with her and Jason on Monday. That man is such a menace, he had us all laughing so hard I had to mute. They're like siblings, those two. She rolled her eyes. They can get a little too honest. Too honest? I heard myself say, like I'd never learned how to repeat a phrase without making it a question. Hannah shrugged. You know how it is with old friends, no filter. It's sweet though, she adores you. We all do. She scratched her terrier under the chin. You look tired. Long night? I told her it was. I didn't say why. That afternoon, I checked the calendar and made a plan. I texted Kelly and asked if she wanted to go out Thursday to celebrate just the two of us. She said yes and sent a string of shark emojis. I made a reservation at her favorite wine bar downtown, the one that does flights and cheese boards and has curtain booths that make regular people feel famous. Wednesday night, I took the pendant down from the shelf again and stared at it. I put it in my jacket pocket and then took it out. I put it in again. I told myself I'd decide at the table. Thursday came. Kelly came out of the bedroom in a black dress that made the whole room look expensive. She swiped on red lipstick at the mirror by the door and practiced a smile like she was about to step in front of cameras. I watched her and felt two truths at once. I loved this woman and I didn't know her as well as I thought. At the wine bar, we got a booth with a curtain. The world shrank to a small table, 2 glasses, and the soft clink of other people's dates. Kelly was in a mood, the good kind. Bubbly, generous, leaning across the table to tell me every detail about her new manager, the research vessel schedule, the housing stipend for fieldwork. I let her go. When the server left us with the second flight, I said her name and she looked up, that bright, open face still lit like a marquee. I love you, I said. I need to say that first. She smiled. I went on. You're the person I've trusted more than anyone. You know that. I've been looking at rings. Her hand flew to her mouth. Stop, she whispered, half laughter, half breath. Mark, why did you tell Jason I was bad in bed? The air changed. It was subtle, like a door opening somewhere behind you. She blinked once, slowly, like she had to register the words and translate them into a language she understood. What? She laughed in a way that wasn't laughing. What are you talking about? Monday. I came home early. I was in the basement. I heard you. I heard the whole thing. Silence is loud in a small space. She looked at the table, then back at me, then past me, like she could find a better answer behind the curtain. Jason knows how much I love you, she said carefully. We were just messing around. It wasn't serious. You know how friends are? It was a joke. You said you cut up baby carrots and felt bad for me? I surprised myself by not crying when I said it. I felt motion sick. You compared me to your ex? She held my gaze for 3 beats. I didn't mean it, she said finally. I was venting. We had a rough week. You've been working a lot. I don't know. I was stupid. Did you tell Jason other things? I asked. Do you message him late at night? Oh, her eyes narrowed. Who told you that? It doesn't matter who told me. It matters that it's true. She lifted her chin. We've been friends for 20 years. Sometimes we talk late, sometimes we talk about everything, sometimes I say things I don't mean because I'm frustrated. I'm not cheating. I would never cheat. I didn't say you were. I put my hands under the table so I wouldn't quench them. I'm saying you made me the punchline to your oldest joke with your favorite audience. We sat there a long minute, the way people do when they both know a thing is over and neither wants to say the words that end it. I'd imagined anger. I'd imagined tears. What I felt was an odd, light stillness, like a string had been tied too tight for too long and someone finally snipped it. I can't do this, I said. My voice sounded like it belonged to someone wiser. I'm not asking you to beg. I'm not asking you to explain this into something it isn't. I love you. I respect myself. Both things can be true. She reached for my hand. I let her hold it. Mark, please, don't throw us away over a joke, she whispered. I'm sorry. I'll apologize to Jason right now. This wasn't about Jason, I said. It was about respect. The server came back and saw our faces and read the room and left the check without speaking. I paid. We walked to the car without touching. I drove her home. She packed a bag in silence while Buddy watched from the doorway with confused eyes. I told her I'd box up the rest to let her know when she could come by. At the door, she turned and said, "You're making a mistake." I didn't answer. It should have ended there. Some things do, most don't. The next morning, I woke up to a text from Kelly that was an apology and an accusation at once. She was sorry I was sensitive, sorry I'd embarrassed both of us by misinterpreting something harmless, sorry that my pride outweighed our history. I put my phone face down and went to work. I had a busy day spring rabies clinics, 3 spay-neuters, 1 urgent porcupine quill removal that took 2 texts and my sweetest voice. Around 4, my brother Aaron called. He lives an hour north with his wife and 2 kids, and he's the kind of older brother who will help you move a couch and then tell you the couch is ugly. I answered on the second ring. "You sound like a man who hasn't slept," he said. "You need me to come down?" So I told him, not everything. The shape of it, the call, the joke, the bar, the bag at the door. He was quiet for longer than I expected. "You want me there tonight?" he asked. "I'll bring pizza and tools. We can pack her stuff and change the locks." "I'm not changing the locks," I said automatically. "That feels mean." "Okay," he said. "Then I'll bring pizza and a bad attitude." He showed up at 7 with 2 boxes, a roll of tape, and the kind of solidarity you only get from someone who taught you how to throw a punch in middle school. We packed. We put her books in a separate box because I didn't want the corners to get bent. We wrapped the shark-themed mugs in dish towels. We wrote "B Room" on a Sharpie label, and I stared at the word until it blurred. At 9, Kelly texted to ask if she could come by for a few things. I told her Erin and I would be there. She arrived with a friend from the running club, a woman I'd seen at brunch once who looked at me like I'd just kicked a puppy. They were polite. We were polite. You can be polite when your heart feels like a scraped knee. When they left, Aaron stood in my kitchen looking around like he was taking a photo with his eyes. "You sure?" he asked. "We can throw all this in the yard if you want the dramatic version." "I'm sure," I said. "Drama's what got us here." He hugged me and went home. I thought that was the end. I thought we'd done the hard part. But endings have a way of lagging behind the moment you think you've crossed them. 2 days later, on Sunday afternoon, I took my truck to Costco to buy dog food, paper towels, and 3 things I didn't need but would convince myself were good deals. When I got back, the side gate was open. The back door, too. A cold dread slid through me like a draft. Nothing prepares you for seeing your home not as you left it. The living room looked like the end of a bad party. A lamp was on its side. A framed photo of us at Enchanted Rock lay face down. The glass spiderwebbed. The couch cushions had been sliced, not with rage but with intention. Clean lines, foam like snow in the air. In the kitchen, the pantry was open and a bag of flour had been ripped and thrown. There was flour on everything. The counter, the floor, the dog bowls, the dish rack. Tomato sauce had been poured into the driver's seat of my work SUV, not splashed. Poured. I stood in the doorway for a long moment and let the scene arrange itself into a sentence. Someone did this on purpose. Then I called Aaron. Then I called the police. The officer who came was young, with a steady voice and a notebook he flipped open like he practiced in the mirror. He walked through the rooms with me and made sympathetic sounds and asked the practical questions. Did I have cameras? No, just a doorbell cam that didn't catch the gate. Did I have any reason to believe someone specific did this? I closed my eyes and saw red lipstick in the mirror by the door. Did I want to file a report? Yes, please. I wanted the universe to see I had not done this to myself. We took photos, we swept up glass, I closed the side gate and locked the back door and sat on the porch steps in the dust, my hands covered in flour like I'd tried to bake grief into something edible. That night, I slept in the guest room because the bedroom smelled like tomato sauce even though I'd never taken it that far into the house. The brain is stupid like that. It will take a detail and smear it through your memories just to make it stick. Monday morning, I called my insurance. I called a cleaning company that specializes in post-incident scenes, which is a phrase I didn't know existed. I texted Kelly a single line. "Your things will be on the porch at 5 p.m. Please pick them up by 8. She didn't respond. At 7:45, they were gone. On Tuesday, my mom called. I hadn't planned to tell her. She is a kind woman with soft hands and a steel spine, and she carries worry the way some people carry prayers, always, and for everyone. I told her anyway. She listened. She said, "People show you who they are, honey. Believe them the first time." I wanted that sentence to hurt less than it did. For a while, I tried to go on like normal. Work helps. Animals need what they need, whether you're heartbroken or not. I got up, I put on the polo with my clinic's logo. I answered questions about grain-free diets and flea collars and whether a dog can get seasonal allergies. Yes, I did my job, and my job did me the favor of filling space that would otherwise echo. But the nights were long. The thing about a joke is that it repeats. You replay it in new rooms with better lighting and a worse audience. I kept hearing Kelly's voice, that low conspiratorial tone, and Jason's laugh following it like punctuation. I told myself it wasn't about size, not really. I told myself it was about respect. It was about who you are with your person when no one's watching and who you become when everyone is. A week after the flour and sauce incident, I went for a run at sunset. I am not a runner by nature. I do it the way you take medicine, because it helps. I ran down our street and turned by the elementary school and cut across the park where pickup soccer games happen on Saturdays. By the time I got home, I could breathe without counting. I sat on the curb in front of my house with a bottle of water and watched a neighbor teach his kid how to ride a bike. She wobbled, straightened, wobbled, and then, for half a second, flew. I wanted that feeling. Not the flying, just the tipping point where the wobble stops feeling like falling and starts feeling like motion. The next morning, I did something I'm not proud of. I boxed up a petty part of my heart and mailed it to Kelly. Specifically, I went on the Costco app and ordered 20 bulk bags of baby carrots to be delivered to the address of a friend I knew she was staying with, 40 pounds. A ridiculous, juvenile, I hate myself, a little bit of theater. When the delivery confirmation came through, I felt not better, just distracted. She texted me an hour later, "Grow up." I blocked her number, then I unblocked it, then I blocked it again. 2 days after that, a letter arrived. Not a text, not an email. A letter. Kelly's handwriting is neat and round, the kind you think little girls learn in movies about good schools. It said she was sorry she'd hurt me, that she loved me, that she said things she didn't mean when she felt insecure. She said she'd felt like she was losing me to my clinic, my long hours, the 3 a.m. emergencies, the way I come home carrying other people's fear in my pockets. She said Jason was the person she called when she felt small, because he'd always known how to make her feel big. She said she'd never cheated. She said the joke wasn't worth what it cost. She asked if there was a version of the future where we could fix it. I put the letter on the kitchen table and stared at it until the words blurred. Then I called my therapist. I haven't mentioned him yet because that's not usually part of the story you tell strangers on the internet, but I started seeing someone on and off after my dad died 3 years ago. Dr. Patel is a calm man with owlish glasses who communicates in questions that feel like permission slips. I hadn't seen him in months. He squeezed me in for Friday. We sat in his office while a small water feature did its best impression of a mountain stream, and he asked me what I wanted, not what I thought I should want, not what I feared, what I wanted. It took me a full minute to say it out loud. I want to be with someone who doesn't get a thrill from making me small, I said. I want to be safe in the punchlines. He nodded like I'd answered a riddle correctly. What does safety look like, he asked. Knowing that if I'm not in the room, the person I love isn't performing a different version of our life, I said. Knowing that if I fail at something, it's not material. What if Kelly could learn that, he said. Do I want to teach it, I asked back and surprised myself by how quickly the words came. Do I want to be the person who sits next to her while she figures out what respect feels like? Maybe, in another timeline, but not this one. I'm tired. We talked for an hour. I left with the kind of tired that feels clean. On the way home, I stopped by the jewelry shop. I took the pendant out of my pocket and set it on the glass. The woman behind the counter recognized me. Does she like it? She asked, smiling. She never saw it, I said. Do you take returns? She looked at the pendant, then at me, then back at the pendant. Technically, no, she said gently, but I can do store credit. I bought a small silver dog tag and had them engrave Buddy's name on it. When I got home, Buddy wagged his full body when I clipped it to his collar. He licked my face like I'd done something heroic. Maybe, in a way, I had, for both of us. I wrote Kelly back. I told her I appreciated the letter. I told her I believed she hadn't cheated. I told her I also believed she'd made choices that set fire to the floor we stood on. I told her I was returning respect to myself like a borrowed thing I'd forgotten was mine. I wished her well at the Institute. I told her I'd be rooting for sharks from a distance. Then I folded the letter, put it in an envelope, and walked it to the mailbox like a man delivering a small piece to a war that couldn't be won. That night, I slept in my own bed for the first time in days. It smelled like laundry detergent and dog and a little bit like flour if I thought about it, which I tried not to. I woke up before my alarm and made coffee and watched the sun turn my fence from gray to gold. I stood there, cup in hands, and said out loud to no one, "You did the right thing." I said it again. The second time, it sounded less like a line I'd memorized and more like something true. Time passed in the unglamorous way it does. I answered emails, I scheduled annuals, I lost 2 patients and cried with their owners in rooms that smell like disinfectant and love. I took Buddy to the park and let him sniff every bench like he was catching up on neighborhood news. I called Aaron and told him I was okay. I called my mom and let her tell me the same story about how my dad once drove 2 hours back to a restaurant because he thought he hadn't tipped enough. I went to the grocery store and didn't buy baby carrots. About a month later, I ran into Hannah at the coffee shop. She asked how I was. I told her the short version. We broke up. She hugged me without asking and said, "I'm sorry." Then she said, like someone offering a glass of water, "For what it's worth, we all liked how you loved her. That's hard to find." I walked back to my car with my coffee and thought about that sentence. We liked how you loved her. There's a risk in loving someone the way you hope to be loved. They might not know what to do with it. They might turn it into a bit. They might call their oldest friend and try out some lines they think are harmless. They might not realize they're practicing the end of something that could have been good for a long time. The last thing I'll say is this. I don't know if Kelly is a bad person. I think she's a human person who likes to be adored and doesn't always know how to carry that without spilling it on the people standing closest. I think she'll be a great scientist. I think Jason will always be loud in her life. I think I'll be okay. No more than okay. I think I'll be the kind of man who laughs with his partner, never at them, and never lets them be the joke when the room gets quiet and someone's looking for an easy laugh. It was just a joke, sure, but I stopped being the audience for it. And that, I'm learning, is the difference between being in a story and finally telling your own. And that's where my story comes to an end. What do you think about everything that happened? I'd really like to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you want to hear more stories like this one.